tourism is at the forefront of the future of Sri Lanka. This is the one that we're betting on. This is the one that's going to take us out and rebound us, not just rebound this industry, but get Sri Lanka onto the right path.
The opportunity is there. There's huge opportunity. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think there was opportunity.
The biggest single emotion is frustration. We are not utilizing our potential even in a good year by positioning this destination, by communicating to consumers, because the decision maker for a holiday in Sri Lanka is the consumer, nobody else. And our consumer communication has been absolutely non-existent.
International travel volumes to Sri Lanka are returning back to normal. So how do we prepare for the rebound and strategize for the long term in the tourism industry? Hello, you're with Echelon and this is Turning Point, and we're discussing the tourism rebound and what it would take to position the country as a destination that is both attractive and high-yielding for the industry. And we have three leaders in the industry around the table here with us today, and I will ask each of them an opening question and also get to meet, so that you get to meet them at the same time. So it's great to have you here with us on Echelon, and I'll start with you, Alan. Alan, you've been on the other side of the business, so to speak, right? You've been on the infrastructure side of the hospitality trade, and now you sort of transitioned to doing, to being a general manager at Radisson Hotels for Sri Lanka. And you've picked an interesting time and an interesting market to do this in, right?
Yes.
How has the transition gone so far?
That's a very good question. I suppose the easiest answer is karma. Karma's come back to bite me. Having started my career in operations, but, more than 3 decades ago now, I've sort of come full circle. I went through operations into investment banking, into real estate, and focused on hotels and leisure because I was one of the only ones that actually worked in a hotel. And so I became the hotels guy for, some of the sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East, and then went into the consultant sector doing a lot of asset management. And now I'm on the other side of the table where everybody's questioning me. So that's why I'm saying, karma's come back to bite me. So I've learned a lot about myself, should I say, in this transition, and to think, should I ever return back to the asset management side? I'll
probably be so tough on the
kids. I'll probably be a lot nicer. I think I'll be a lot more understanding. I think one of the biggest key learnings I've taken away from it is, from a real estate standpoint and an asset management standpoint, you actually assume that everybody knows what you're talking about. And when you go into the operations side, you take that same assumption with you. And it's been a hard learning for me that no, it's actually the opposite. You do have to educate everybody on what you're doing every day, day to day. And I think Mikael probably agree with me on that one.
Absolutely.
So we have Mikael Svensson. Mikael is CEO of Cinnamon Hotels and Resorts. And Mikael, it's hard to not notice the structure that's come up in Colombo, Cinnamon Life. What do you think this will mean for the tourism product in Sri Lanka and also for Colombo?
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's hard to notice. I don't know if it's a blessing or what it is when I wake up every morning and look at it. But, this is obviously a huge investment and a game changer for Colombo, for Sri Lanka, for the region. $1.4 billion and an integrated resort is the largest private sector investment that the country's seen. And we have huge expectations. I have huge expectations from a Cinnamon perspective. But I think certainly all of us around the table, what this is going to do for the industry. This is something that we need to everybody stand behind and leverage from as we bring Cinnamon and the Cinnamon brand to the world at a different level. And I'm sure all the various brands that we represent have to and will benefit from what we're going to do in and for the country.
And Malik, Fernando is no stranger to us, but and Malik runs an iconic chain of hotels, the number of iconic hotels. I mean, Tea Trails is renowned for the experience that it offers its guests, right? Malik, this is been both an interesting and challenging 4 years for us in the industry. As you look forward to the chain that you're managing, where are you and what do you think are your challenges?
Well, it's more frustrations rather than challenges because, you see, I've just come back from several weeks of sales calls in Europe, and the esteem in which the country is kept, the love that travel advisors and consumers have for this country. It is the most amazing, multi-dimensional destination. We have our ups and downs, too many, but for me, 24 is looking good. We're well placed. But the most frustrating thing is if you look at the potential of this country, we are only tapping a fraction of it.
Yeah.
We are not communicating. If you look at multidimensional attractions that we have, we are a touring country. No other country has this amount of attractions, a continent's worth of attractions on a small island.
No.
Countries that are booming now are single dimensional. Right? They don't have the variety that we have, and travel advisors, travel agents, whatever you call them, know what we offer. But the most frustrating thing for me is if you ask me over the last 4 to 5 years, you manage COVID, you manage the Easter attacks, you manage the economic crisis, you come out of it because we are resilient. I mean, although our resilience is tested. But for me, the biggest single emotion is frustration that we are not utilizing our potential even in a good year by positioning this destination, by communicating to consumers, because the decision maker for a holiday in Sri Lanka is the consumer, nobody else.
That's right.
And our consumer communication has been absolutely non-existent. So without country level consumer communication, it's the consumer who responds to an offer from a travel agent or calls a travel agent. The travel agents are uniformly in love with this country. There's no need to reinforce the fact that Sri Lanka is an amazing place. There's no need to say Sri Lanka is safe to a travel agent because they know it. They've got contacts. We need to talk to the decision maker, who is the consumer.
Agree.
The fact that we have not communicated with the consumer, the traveler, the holiday maker, except for the few odd approaches which have limited value and not in our core markets, for me, that is a huge tragedy. So if you ask me, I mean, there's a very leading question, is for me, the single biggest emotion about tourism in this country is frustration. The fact that we are not approaching anywhere near our potential.
Let me ask what may seem maybe a basic question, but really, what does this translate to for the industry when you don't have a campaign, a destination marketing campaign, or a well-positioned brand?
If I may respond to that, sorry guys, I don't want to butt in, but
please.
The point I was trying to make is this. Every country has ups and downs. Sri Lanka particularly is a yo-yo, if you look at the last 5 or 6 years. But we were stable for tourism purposes as far back as August of last year. But when you don't have consumer communication as to safety, the return to normalcy, visit Sri Lanka, just like other destinations that opened up immediately after COVID, went out guns blazing and travelers flocked in. What it means is it's tragic. There are lives at stake here. Although the country stabilized in August, the season last year, the high season, was the worst ever high season in recent memory. I'm sure you can attest to that. Yeah. We were at 10, 15, 20% occupancies. The weather was beautiful. The country was safe. Everyone was open. No consumer knew. To this day, if you ask many travelers about Sri Lanka, they are nervous to travel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why would someone come to a country that doesn't have fuel? Why would someone come to a country that doesn't have food? Why would someone come to a country that has unrest? Now, of course, everyone listening knows that everything I've said isn't true. But does our potential traveler know that? Yeah. So when you don't have communication, you cannot react and you grow back organically. The same thing happened in Peru. They are still suffering because their promotion is absolutely crippled like ours. So what this means is, even though things are looking up, occupancies are looking up, rates are picking up, although they're low, none of us can say for sure there will not be a crisis in the future. If and when there is another crisis, the fact that we can't communicate what's actually happening and that it might be over means that the industry and the investors suffer for far longer, for maybe a year longer than they need have had we communicated the true situation and travelers built the confidence to come back.
Yeah, and I think also to that is that, I mean, the campaign is obviously needs to be at the forefront, and, and that needs to be at the forefront moving forward. But all of our brands in the private sector, we need to, if we're saying, okay, rebound, tourism is rebounding, we're seeing 80% of 18, 19, or whatever it may be, which isn't great numbers. You know, the starting point isn't anything impressive, and we need to be at a far better place for us to be sustainable and driving rates and driving demand and rates. But what we need to do is to go out there and be proactive in promoting our brands and Sri Lanka. And everybody that speaks of it needs to be on the same wavelength. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, I'm from Sweden, and I got a radio recording yesterday from the largest radio station and largest TV station in Sweden. And it was just a 2.5-minute program, and she was talking about Sri Lanka is coming back, it's rebounding, and there's an expectation of 5 million arrivals in 5 years' time. And whomever it was that had gone on to that, somebody within politics or tourism or whoever it was, took that opportunity to play the political game and said, well, there's no way that you're going to get 5 million people into the country in 5 years. There's no infrastructure. The quote was, the country is not even set up today to handle 1.5 million. Now that is just absolutely mind-blowing.
There's someone local who said that.
Yes. Right? That somebody is saying something like this. Well, we all have to push behind the positivity. We all have to be proactive, right, Malik? We all have to, you know, if you promote tea trails, it helps us. If you're promoting Radisson or whatever, as tourism, it's a family affair almost.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And let me give you another very live example. You know, like yourself, Malik, just come back from Europe, and you know, we've all got blisters on our feet from WTM and everything else. And one of the largest tour operators, I won't name them because I don't know if we're allowed to, and it's not fair on them, but came to us and said, you know, one of the things they were going to do was they were going to put charters out of the UK again. They cancelled it at the last minute. Their MD cancelled this at the last minute. What was the reason? Medical shortages in Sri Lanka.
Wow.
My first question, where did you get this information?
Online,
well,
right?
even online. British Foreign Office still says there's riots on the street, there's medical shortage. German says the same thing. Swiss says exactly the same thing.
I'll give you a classic case, Alan, of how this works, right? And there is unfortunately a lot of ignorance amongst the people responsible how a consumer decides to go to a destination. When the negative headlines recede, as it did in June or July of last year, it doesn't mean that automatically everything is okay.
No.
There's a huge vacuum. You've then got to seed the internet, because the internet is how most travelers decide where
Absolutely.
they go, with positive news. Now, when there is no positive news through PR and marketing, the internet gives extra significance to old news. Mm-hmm. So even now, when you don't have that positive reinforcement online through the digital campaigns that most modern tourism marketing organizations engage in, you get the old news.
Yeah.
So travel advices, for example, right?
Yeah.
If you look at some of these, if you look at the Australian travel advisory, I was looking for Sri Lanka, and I came on a pretty drastic one, and I realized it was the Australian government advisory on Germany, because all diplomats cover their ass in terms of what they say you should and shouldn't do. But in Sri Lanka's case, because there is a question mark, because we've not sent out positive messages ourselves as we should, these advisories take undue significance, because that becomes the single source of information. We have no counter propaganda.
Yeah, single source.
And on the flip side of that, look how powerful it could be.
Oh God, it could be.
Because we are not a big country, and the people that are communicating are a handful. And if we would all align with the same message,
well, it's as Malik was saying earlier, you know, there's so much interest, and having just come back from Europe as well, everybody's interested in it. There is so much to offer in this country, and as you say, the diversity of what it offers. You know, our customers, you know, and you've got hotels with cinnamon all over the country, which is the great thing, because you attract all those different customers to all those different regions. And you go back to it and say, well, how do we get that? If somebody feels insecure, as you say, they're going to look at it first. How do they decide? You know, I did sales trips to India. It's our next door neighbors. Our countries are talking about building a bridge or a tunnel between one another, but yet they're still asking the question, is it safe to come to Sri Lanka?
So we are uncoordinated at every single level. This is not just tourism board, but this is something tourism board potentially can take the lead in sort of bringing coherency.
Yeah, I mean,
is that the focal point?
You see, nation branding, there's a concept called nation branding.
Yeah.
You make your opinion based on the products and services. So when you think of Germany, you think of Switzerland, your opinion is made up from their chocolate or their BMW cars or whatever. So in our case, I mean, this is a little bit too far-fetched given our performance thus far, is that how we kind of package together our apparel, our tea, our tourism, we can create an amazing nation brand. But honestly, it's too much to ask, given our track record. But if you look at tourism per se, every one of us pays 1% as a promotional levy, right? That money is accumulated, it is not spent. If the private sector, amongst us at the table and a few others, I mean, developing a campaign is very simple. I know there are issues with procurement, but the point here is that unless we communicate accurately to a consumer, we will never reach our potential at any time. Numbers is one thing, but it's yield that's important. If you look at this as a destination, a health of a destination is connected, in my view, to the number of foreign brands in that destination and the type of foreign brands. If you look at all the brands who are in Sri Lanka, we probably have the lowest foreign brand penetration for a tourism destination of our maturity. If you poll all the foreign brands, they are deeply disappointed with their performance. Most of the foreign brands are owned by local companies here in Sri Lanka. But a successful tourism destination has brands like, say, if you look at the Maldives or Thailand or wherever, family offices, private equity, institutional funds go into a vibrant destination, and you know this, Alan, from your background.
Yeah.
They'll invest in the hardware and they'll get a top brand to run it.
Sure.
Because it's a vibrant economy, a tourism economy, and there are good returns. If you look at Sri Lanka, the genuine FDI in tourism is very low. You've had Shangri-La, that's it. I can't think of anything else. Marriott, you had Ong Beng Seng who bought it recently. But if you ask both the people I mentioned as to how happy they are, honestly, they would be disgusted. Simply because we are not providing the basic fundamentals for an investment in tourism in this country.
Alan, you've sat at the other side of this table. You just talked about it, right? This is your karma. So I'm asking you to sort of switch back. Contrast Sri Lanka. I mean, Maldives is a far-fetched. Let's look at Thailand or somewhere else where foreign brands are present. If you take some headlines, if you take some key points, how different are they for some market like Sri Lanka currently?
Probably the same sentiment as Malik said, really. I've been looking at, to let you all into a little secret, for investment coming into this market. My background has all this, obviously, connections with investors and everything else. And not just the hotels that I'm responsible for just now as area general manager. It's looking for other hotels on behalf of our operating company, La Vie Hotels and Resorts, and even our owner and other owners are saying, can you connect us with these investors? I'm going out to investors that are either even investing in the brand itself or investing in the real estate itself. And sadly, again, it comes right back to the same sentiment as the tourist. How safe is my money going to be in Sri Lanka? Because right now, it's not seen as a safe destination, as a tourist to travel. So why would I invest my money in somewhere where, rates are exceptionally low? We don't like it. Yes, our occupancy is picking up. Yes. Are we anywhere near, everybody goes on about the heyday of 2018 and 2019 numbers? No. The sentiment from WTM, and I'll tell you this is fact, was that, the operators are only at 35 to 40% of their 2018, 2019 numbers. We've got a long way to go. So then you come back, I take a seat back and put my investor hat back on. It's the perfect time to do it, right? The perfect time to do it because you're getting so much more bang for your dollar. But it's opportunistic. Right? So when you're an investor and you raise funds and you go out to your people, you tell them what you're going to invest in. Are you going to be opportunistic or are you going into, already very established havens where you're happy that your cap rates are very, very small? Or are you going to go into places where your capitalization rates could be potentially enormous, which it can be in Sri Lanka? And that's the appetite is there. but nobody's gone into that opportunistic fund. So if you go back to where your core money's coming from, they won't let you invest in it just now.
And I think to your point there, Alan, is that, the opportunity to invest now, as long as you have confidence in the future and confidence in the future of the country. It goes back to what I said earlier. Let's go all get on the same train. And I believe very strongly that the next 5 years, bar any bumps in the road, we are going to be in a good place.
Yes.
So Mikael, you're one of the largest operators. You have the largest room inventory in Sri Lanka, right? When the tourism authorities ask you about, how you feel the island should be perceived, presented, positioned, what are you telling them? Is that message not getting through?
I think
are they asking you?
They're not asking me enough.
I don't think they're asking anybody.
No. If they did ask, let's put it that way. No. Obviously, I'm involved in certain discussions, but I think to Malik's point as well, I think we're here and we should all be more involved in discussing what is going on.
Mikael, it's a marketer's dream. This country, I repeat, is a marketer's dream. We have so many destinations which have very little to offer, but brilliantly marketed, and they do well. We have absolutely everything. And to cap it all, we have the most amazing, warm, friendly, hospitable people. So it's a dream for any half-assed marketer to get out there and to position it as it should. Let me repeat, to the consumer. Going to WTM, going to ITB is not marketing. It's trade marketing, which is 20-30% of modern marketing. Yeah. Consumer marketing is what all the successful tourist boards do. And we do none.
Exactly my point.
We haven't even started.
This going to WTM and all this, fine. If that's,
we have to do it. It's just part of the parcel.
We have to do. But that is not the driver of consumer marketing.
No, it doesn't get to
getting
the consumer.
Let me give you a simple example. Last month, one of my properties, Ceylon Tea Trails, which is the first Condé Nast Traveller Gold List property, had 1 hour prime time in the BBC. They have a program called Amazing Hotels Beyond the Lobby, right?
Yeah,
so that was a significant negotiation. They were with us in April, and that eventually gets 200 million viewers. And it's on Netflix, it will be, etc. It goes global. So that's what I mean by positioning PR, right? It means that when that goes on there, it helps the whole destination, not just my properties. But that's what we need to do at a country level, across the board, across multiple markets. Very simple. The money is there. However, when it doesn't get spent, as I suspect the monies that have been accumulated that have not got spent, probably already have been taken to the treasury to balance the budget. So again, the tax that we paid, I'm just guessing, but logically, if money is not spent, government would use it elsewhere, right? There's common sense. So if you look at what needs to be done, you take 8 to 12 key markets, you appoint sales, you appoint PR, and PR is very important. And I think there's a very serious lack of understanding of what public relations is. It is the best ROI for your buck, very little investment, because we just need to position the destination to the right kind of traveler in the right kind of titles. And when you do that, and there is also misconceptions, I'm blabbering about high-end and da-da-da. The whole point is that if you promote and position a destination as aspirational, it helps the Airbnb, it helps a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, it helps everybody.
Sure. But I think to your question also, I'd like just to add is that, and maybe not everybody even around this table thinks the same, but I feel that when you have a destination that isn't that well known, right? It is not, even at its best time, not everybody knows what Sri Lanka is. So we can all sit around and say it's a very unique island. It has all of these things within 6 hours, 7 hours. You can see this. There's not a lot of countries that promote themselves that way. And why? Maybe because you should be looking at what are the biggest draw cards. Even in the likes of Thailand, you can go to the beach, and you can go to Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai and go around. Yes, it's a little bit longer. Their infrastructure is better, faster. So, it's one for the other. How about if we look at this from saying, okay, what are our real USPs among those 5 or 6 different things that we have? Is it our beaches? Our beaches are bar none the best beaches in the world. They're unspoiled, they're beautiful, they're clean, they're nice. The waters are fantastic. The views are amazing. The hotels are extraordinary. So from somebody who is thinking about, should I go to Thailand or should I go to Indonesia? Because I'm going there to the beach. I'm not going there not everybody is a Lonely Planet type type of traveler, right? There's a very small market, and people don't have time also. They have 3 or 4 weeks in their year. So they'll choose 1, 2, I would say at max, of experiences that you want to have when you travel, be it city and beach, be it beach and safari, be it this and that. But I think we're trying to say, look, this is our USP. We have everything here. And when people don't know, when the consumer doesn't know what you have at all, it's confusion. There's not one thing that sells over the other. So I think we should be looking at prioritizing, focusing 80% of our attention on the 20% that really draws tourism around the region.
Yeah.
And be a regional marketing player, because to try to say, come to Sri Lanka, it's just not, because we're dealing with a person who's sitting at home and saying, should I go there, or should I go there, should I go there? For the same reason, either to the beach or to this. Then we have the additionals of, we have safari, we have this. That's this cream on the crop. But let us focus our campaign. I don't know, Malik, what you think, but let's focus our campaign on the real areas where we can compete with our regional players.
Alan, let me bring you in, and I am the tourism authority here, and you've got like a 2-minute pitch here about how we should quickly position Sri Lanka. We've got an opportunity, we've got a budget. What do we do?
It's a loaded question, that one.
Don't let us down, please.
I know, 2-minute clock's on. I totally agree with Mikael here. I think that's a really great idea. I suppose myself and Mikael are in a very unique position where we do have hotels across Sri Lanka at the moment, and with Radisson growing as well. And we're in different areas, and selling that back to the customer, whether it's a corporate customer or whether it's, the urbanization of showing Colombo, whether that's now going down to the beaches and whale watching in Gaul, or whether that's, the cultural tour that we do in Kandy. Because I think coming off of Mikael's point of view is the customer is sitting there at home watching the television, reading in a magazine, whichever media that they're using, and thinking, well, why should I go there? So you have to come back to go, well, these are the reasons that you're coming to do it. And it's something, from our point of view, as me sitting as area general manager for Radisson, we've even noticed, because we've learned the hard way. We've learned the wrong way, to be honest, in the sense that our customers weren't always staying with us. And I bet this is the same for Mikael, that when they're going through the DMCs, they might be staying at 1 or 2 of our hotels and then a different one. And because of that, we're not able to offer that customer a seamless experience. So we're selling the whole experience. And I think this is what we need to do as destination Sri Lanka, is to go, if you want to go up mountains and tea trails, which everybody wants to do, and everybody wants to go and see elephants, and everybody wants to see the beach, Colombo's the entry point. They want to see the city. The whale watching, I can't believe how popular this is. And you go to India, nobody knows we have whale watching. They send all their customers to South Africa. They can get on a plane for an hour and see them, So I think it's packaging it together, showing that what we can do as hotel companies, whether it's Cinnamon or Radisson, that we are in all these destinations. And keep in mind, Radisson, Cinnamon, and even our competitors, let's not forget about them. We're in these destinations in Sri Lanka for a reason. We're in the multiple destinations because that's what the tourism that we want to try and sell to. That's the hook that's trying to sell that back to the customer.
What do you think about that positioning, Malik? You zero in on 1 or 2 things.
See, Shamindra, it's a luxury in our current context to be able to think of positioning or what we're going to communicate. Because right now, we are not even through the door, right? So it's really, why aren't we communicating? Even if you communicate not ideally, it's better than nothing. Sri Lanka is not a new tourism destination. We are the oldest tourism destination in Asia, if I'm not mistaken, right? We opened up, maybe Thailand before, we opened up for tourism in 1966. So if you look at a lot of these European markets, there is a lot of mental recall, because if you look at Scandinavia, if you look at Italy, if you look at Germany, tourists have been coming here since the 60s or 70s. It's not a new destination. So there is a very positive affinity towards the country. But there is uncertainty as to what is the ground situation. Is it safe to travel? Secondly, is it a cheap and cheerful destination? Is there aspirational quality products in that destination? So if you get to the point where you're talking about what you're going to promote, and to be honest, it's like going to a restaurant. You look at a long wine list, but then you'll speak to the maitre d' and you'll select this wine or that wine. It's like a set menu, but you can be attracted in by the choices that we offer. There's another critical aspect here in terms of potential. Maldives is on our doorstep. Pretty much everyone who goes to the Maldives, or every travel agent who worth their salt who sends someone to the Maldives, tries to tell them, why don't you tour in Sri Lanka for a week and then you go to the Maldives for a week? And the travelers say, oh, that looks really cool, but hey, we're uncertain. Or one member of the group says, I saw something in the news. Wasn't there a riot? Wasn't the president's palace, wasn't there a riot? And, and wasn't there a mob? Da, da, da. And they don't understand the nuances simply because we are not communicating, right? So for me, it's not about the content. It's about the fact that we are crippled, paralyzed in terms of even starting a campaign. Once we do, and hopefully we should in the next few months, but there needs to be some kind of a restructure, then we have the luxury of talking about what it is we're going to position.
Mikael, when you open this 800-room large hotel, you really cannot be depending on Sri Lanka's own ability to put together its destination marketing. You have to take this into your own hands.
How are we doing that?
Yeah, how are we doing that?
Well, actually, to what Malik was alluding to in PR, we are setting up, or we have set up, PR companies in 5 key destinations. We have GSOs and regional sales offices in 5 countries and regions around the world. We have campaigns that we're starting to roll out now. So all of those plans, we have a commercial team that are of international caliber that know how to.
You do a great job, I must say.
That. I'm going on the road next week for 3 weeks through Europe, not to go to the WTMs or any of this, but to go direct to consumers, to be it Condé Nast, The Guardian, Telegraph, or private people, or whomever it is, because that's the consumer, right? You're dealing directly with consumer. And that's how you do it. And then obviously it does require a lot of funding. In our case, obviously we do have a certain budget which we can focus towards those efforts. But it is very challenging when a destination is not at the forefront of what you're opening. There is a paradigm difference here between what we are doing with $1 billion integrated resort as to what else is available in Sri Lanka. But that's an opportunity too, and I believe. So
you'd be worried about your yield because, say, if there was a credible destination marketing campaign, you'd be the cream on top.
Can I just add something there? I heard something shocking today. This minimum rates that have been introduced in Colombo, which are anyhow pretty low because we are so cheap anyhow. I heard that the travelers are now moving to the outskirts. They're moving to Negombo, Vattala. So what kind of travelers are we getting, guys?
Yeah.
What kind of travelers are we attracting?
Yeah, we've seen it, and I'm sure Mikael's seen it with his city hotels here in Colombo, and obviously got some of the biggest ones and the 5-star level as well. We've seen, especially group business, we've seen that move to Negombo, and it's a real shame, to be honest with you. November's been a very volatile month for us, and it's been up and down, and corporate business is staying, which is a great thing. But, this was something else that comes out, and you get the whole truth, when you do these sales calls and everything else, and people are like, yeah, we get it, but, now we can't put somebody else that's somewhere cheaper. And it's like, but why do you want to put them somewhere cheaper? So it comes right back to what you were saying, Malik. It's all about the education and educating that customer who's your end tourist at the end of the day. Why do you want to come to Sri Lanka? Where do you want to go in Sri Lanka? Because I'll tell you something, somebody sitting in Europe, Russia, or Timbuktu right now will not know the difference between Colombo and Negombo. They'll just go. They'll go where their travel agent tells them to be. So it's even educating them, to do it.
You have a lot of rooms in Colombo, Mikael. Is the minimum room rate the way you expect government to intervene in the product?
I think there's 2 sides to this. I think, why was the minimum room rate implemented? It is because as a destination as Colombo, we are too cheap. Generally, what you would do is that demand drives rate. That's the business we're in. That's how it should be. And so once you get to a certain level, the cost to be staying in that city is what people are prepared to pay. So that same corporate guest who comes and stays with me from IBM and pays $100, he'll go to Singapore next week, exactly the same person, pay $300.
Yeah.
They're not going to say that's very expensive.
And he'll think it's a typo if he's asked to pay 100, right? You think there must be an error there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I think there's something wrong with it.
Yeah. So this whole idea of saying, well, minimum rate, that's going to decrease demand. The problem is that bringing in a minimum rate from a $50, $60 and forcing that down where the transition hasn't been natural is a very dangerous thing to do. Because two things. Number one, the corporate traveler, they have their own corporate rates within their organization. So if they have, Colombo costs $80. Okay, so that's what it costs. And Singapore costs $300. Now, if you change that and say, well, now this is going to cost you $100, they have nowhere to go until their corporate rates get revised. Yeah. And Colombo naturally would be at $200. They would pay $200. So it's a very dangerous way to just sort of hike something up and believe that you are not going to shift people from 5-star to 4-star or into Negombo or whatever it may be. The other aspect of that is that there's a negativity about coming to the city then, because they're having to go to a hotel they don't want to be in or an area that they don't want to be in because they have certain budgets which have been imposed to them by corporates. The other big problem with this is the MICE industry. When people look at MICE, they look at airlift, right? So you need to have good budget airlines that bring people in. Then you need to have infrastructure. You need to have entertainment, and you need to have reasonable hotel rates. And you package that whole thing as in one. So if you now put this minimum rate onto MICE travelers, they immediately who don't choose Colombo as number one. They may choose it because they haven't been there, so it's something new. Yeah. And you impose something like this, it's not really about the dollar. It's about putting something forward that they must force.
Yeah, I think it's an unusual situation, but sadly is reflective. If you look at the marketing mix, right? Product, positioning, promotion, price. Sri Lanka, typically, we've been in defensive mode. Price is our primary marketing tool, right? So our core business is tea, and price is the primary marketing tool in exporting the world's most amazing tea. Similarly with hotels, people compete simply, healthy competition is a good thing.
Of course.
But essentially, when a travel agent wants to sell a 500-room hotel, and if they get 10% on that, they'd rather sell a 500 than 100, right? Or, you're still having 50-60% travel business. But we kill each other to offer something cheaper and cheaper, okay, because demand is lower. But I'd wager, even if demand was high, we have that propensity to try and get business, not on positioning, on promotion. Yeah. Because if you look at the industry, it's sad to say, we've never really taken a position on marketing. The industry is mute. In more recent times, people are getting agitated because they see the connection between lack of promotion to consumers and inquiries and bookings and rates. But historically, the hotel trade in this country have essentially put their hands up and said, look, whoever's doing the marketing, whether it's the DMCs or the tourism, please get on with it. And we are focused on operations.
Yeah, but I think to your point as well, Malik, I think you're in a different position here, because the other reason why there is a problem with rate versus product is that Colombo is currently a rate-driven destination. It's not a product-driven destination. Yeah. And the reason for that is that the 5-star and the 4-star and even 3 stars all have $5-10 between them. The product differentiation isn't big enough. And therefore, there's no real, there's a mixed bag, and everybody's just looking at it from a rate rather than I want to stay there, I'm paying for that. And that, therefore, going back to what you're saying, I think Cinnamon Life, irrespective of what the demand to Colombo is today, there is going to be huge demand for Cinnamon Life. How that is going to affect other hotels, potentially, but we're not just coming in with an 800-room hotel. We're coming in with an 800-room hotel with, a casino as large as Marina Bay Sands, an entertainment area, a lot of other bells and whistles. Obviously, F&B is huge in Colombo, but, over 25 restaurants, bars, and on an international scale. So I think that the challenge there is how the business shifts and how it should shift into a 5-star market and a 4-star market. And it will require a few more properties at a 5-star level to really establish that this is 5-star pricing. Shangri-La is there, right? Yeah. On its own, sits there as a 5-star. Cinnamon Grand sits, relatively close in rate. and the Taj. Those are kind of the properties that are running some kind of a differentiating rate.
So let's look for a solution around policy, right? So we've got a certain structure for tourism, certain that drives the policy, that sort of frames the policy, and let's assume we have a clean slate. What should the role of the industry be in tourism destination marketing promotion? There is a contribution the industry makes, 1% of the top line to a promotional fund. It's a significant amount of money at the end of the day. How would you rejig policy if you had a clean slate?
See, product development, obviously tourism is a private sector industry. Product development happens naturally when there is potential and there's demand. You'll have investors coming in, foreign brands coming in, locals investing in projects like Cinnamon. So it's simply, how do you create the destination as aspirational? How do you create the demand? What is the structure for that? It's a very good model in the current model in as much as how it's financed. So it's not as if the government has to dig into its pockets and find money to promote, because the industry generates all the funds required and more. All we need is a structure that is effective, that has professional marketers paid professional marketing wages, that essentially is a cell of 5 or 10 people that outsource. That's how other tourist boards operate.
Unbiased.
Yeah.
And unbiased.
Yeah, I mean, essentially focused. Let trade marketing, the current arrangement can carry on, whoever, because that's, I mean, everyone, we all do our trade marketing in terms of the travel shows and reaching out to travel advisors. But where we need basic awareness building is amongst the consumer. So for that, the answer is very straightforward. The money is there. That's always the challenge. The story, the marketing USPs are there in droves, as you heard. We've got lots to talk about. We just lack an effective private sector-led professional nucleus that can essentially develop a 5-year plan and implement it with the participation and approval of the industry. That's the correct strategy. You position Sri Lanka as an aspirational destination. An Airbnb in the Maldives, essentially you can fetch a much higher price than the best 5-star in Colombo. Even when you open Cinnamon Life, I'd wager that looking at the demand for Maldives and the demand for Sri Lanka, that you're going to be challenged with someone's little shack on a little island in the Maldives. That's simply because of demand and positioning, right? So my simple answer is, you set up an effective unit that spends the available money with the strategies which are clear to everyone in the industry, and just there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Look at what other tourist boards do.
I have to completely agree with that. I probably couldn't even say it better myself. And, if I can give a live example to everybody, look at what the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah has done in the United Arab Emirates, right? It's gone up against the behemoth of Dubai. Almost unlimited funds to spend on their tourism, campaigns. Ras Al Khaimah, relatively unknown emirate in the far north, they have done exactly what Malik said, right? How do we position ourselves? What's different to Dubai? Yes, they're still going to come from the beaches. Ras Al Khaimah has mountains and everything else, which none of the other emirates have. There's valleys, there's streams, there's wadis, still got the beach, which everybody wants. They built these fantastic hotels, some of the Ritz-Carltons there, Waldorf's there, Intercon's now moved in. I'm sure everybody knows, this machine has worked for them, that now they'll bring in, Wynn Casino and gambling, and I think it's 2027. But look at what they did. Look how they positioned themselves. Look how they took it. They took the niche. They did their own PR marketing machine. They distanced themselves from Dubai because they wanted to show that they were completely different. And that is where success is. And that's what we should do. If we could copy anybody, don't copy Maldives. It's a completely different destination. Yes, it's on our doorstep. Yes, we should be doing twin center holidays with it, but we should not be trying to emulate them. And I think that's something that we fall in the trap of, because Maldives is such a successful destination and it is next door, I guess it's human nature to be like, well, why can't we do the same as them? But it's different. That's it. It comes right back to what Malik said, product development. And how do you do that product development back to your consumer? Exactly by promoting and showing what it is and educating your customer. That's what RAC Tourism Development Authority did. Ras Al Khaimah, sorry.
We have, I mean, when we live in Sri Lanka, we don't appreciate what we have. Everyone talks of Costa Rica, right? I've not been to Costa Rica, but many travel advisors who've been to Sri Lanka say Sri Lanka is street safe. But when you say Costa Rica in the US, it's like gold bullion. It's like the gold standard.
Yeah.
We are Costa Rica 2x, 3x, 4x. We are the original, authentic tourism destination that offers it all. I mean, back from Marco Polo in 1292, when he was the first Italian tourist here, and he said everything he said about what an amazing country, the most beautiful island of its size or whatever. So we've got it all. We just can't spit it out.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
don't have to make the amazing thing is that we don't have to make any changes to the product. We don't have to make any changes to our service. We have amazing people. Sri Lankans are like Thailand,
Land of the smiles. This is land of the smiles.
Yeah, in Thailand, it's famous for its great service and great smiles. Well, we're exactly the same, and we have English on top of that.
Yes, that is it.
There is a huge risk also we're facing because of the migration. As you know, good luck to you, Mikael, when you start recruiting. I bet you're looking at people from overseas as well, right? Because it's very difficult. This brain drain we're having, and particularly at the lower ranks in the hotels. I mean, it's tragic. We are exporting our Sri Lankan smile. We are exporting our warm hospitality. We are giving other destinations a leg up. It's like when the government kicked out and nationalized all the tea plantations in the 70s. Where did they all go? They went to Kenya. And Kenya is now our fiercest competitor and bigger than us. So we are creating these enemies or competitors using our USPs. Why can't we retain them in the country? Because for us to pay a competitive wage by international standards, you need more demand and better rates. For us to pay a proper service charge, right? We should be able to pay 100, 150, 200,000 a month service charge, month in, month out. But it's a challenge, right? In terms of what the top or even the mid-level resorts in the Maldives pay in terms of service charge. It exceeds what a general manager gets here, 2x, right? It's simply because the industry is not rewarding, but it's sad from margin standpoint, demand standpoint, rate standpoint. But it's sad when you think how complacent we are. We talk of numbers, we talk of tourism is back, and the government says tourism is very important. But the fact is it's a non-starter until we get our consumer marketing not improved.
So
I'm
the
saying get
demand
it
goes
started.
up and price goes up.
Yeah.
Who do you get hold of and shake until they get this sense into their head?
You.
You're our man with the mic every day.
You're in charge.
No, but you have to sort of get this message through.
I think everyone involved in government knows it, but it's the elephant in the room, right? So why don't we all align? Why don't we all understand that it's in our common interest? Government revenues go up. When tourism picks up, taxes goes up, VAT goes up, everything goes up. And any projection government is making 5 years hence on tourism numbers is absolutely bunkum if you're looking at the way we are tracking now and how we are performing so much below potential. I mean, essentially it's up to the government to restructure, and they need to do it. And I think they understand they need to do it. But it's a challenge bypassing
We all have a voice
vested
in
interests.
this, I mean, it's
We
big or
are
small,
contributing the
it
money,
is,
Mikael.
Yeah, absolutely.
And cinnamon is, I think, the biggest contributor of
Has
this.
to be.
We are.
Promotional
Yeah.
levy.
And,
Sure they are.
and when you are that's the whole point, is that when you're contributing to a plan, you should be a part of that.
Yeah, you should
It's
be
as
part
simple
of it.
as that.
That's I have
Right?
to.
You don't contribute to a plan and then let somebody else be a part of that plan. We are all here for the success of each other and the success of the country and building tourism into Sri Lanka. But it just can't happen through a singular strategy. It doesn't work that way. We
I'm
need to
cautiously optimistic that everyone who needs to know understands that the current structure is a failure and that something should happen. Because, as I said, if there are further incidents in the future, and then we've got to wait another 2 years for tourism to return, as we did after the last economic crisis, there's a huge socio-economic cost here because 2 to 3 million people depend on tourism. And government now, if you look at the budget speech, they're all depending on tourism to a larger degree.
Yeah.
So there is an awareness that unless we do something, all of this is kind of pie in the sky.
I think you're absolutely right. And my point to that is also that there is an awareness. Tourism is at the forefront of the future of Sri Lanka. This is the one that we're betting on. This is the one that's going to take us out and rebound us, not just rebound this industry, but get Sri Lanka onto the right path. So I think that we have a front seat in these discussions, and I think they will change. I think as there's more and more demand coming in and you see the potential, I think it will align. And I'm also confident about the future. I'm confident about the future of cinema and life opening, and I'm confident about how the whole industry is going to go from strength to strength. But it's a matter of how quickly, how swiftly, and are we on the right path in the right way using the resources that we have? Like, for example, the three gentlemen around this table.
See, Shamindra, there's no other destination that appeals to every single demographic. When people tell me, what is it good for? Is it for honeymooners? Is it for older people? Is it for kids? Is it for nature lovers? Is it for, trekkers? It's for all of them. If you look at the Maldives, right, there is a particular segment who would go, who can afford. Ditto so many other countries. But this country appeals to everybody at every price bracket.
Yes.
Whatever Alan, people might say about infrastructure or whatever, we appeal in droves to the luxury traveler because the luxury traveler has seen it all. We are authentic. People say we are 30 years, this is Bali 30 years ago. And people want that because they've said Bali is overdeveloped. It's a strength, right?
It's a strength.
Yeah, but we become 30 years and the next year we are 40 years before Bali, then 50 years because we might say we're going backwards.
But the risk is that we get demand so high and then we move towards the Balis.
Like the Balis, which can't, there's the place which...
So gentlemen, final thoughts. Can I start with you, Alan? Just take a minute or two at most.
Final thoughts, I would say, from my point of view, the opportunity is there. There's huge opportunity. And I'll be honest and I'll say this, my owner's not sat here, I'm sure he'll listen to it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think there was opportunity. Let me say that. That's probably my first and most final thought. I wouldn't be here if I did not think there was opportunity.
Malik.
In a sentence, let's get our act together. We all know what needs to be done. Everything to achieve that is available, including critically the funds. Let's get cracking. It's no joke.
Okay.
I'm very optimistic about the future as long as we use the resources that we have and we have them at hand. And let's work together to a brighter future and we'll make it happen.
Mikael, Malik, Alan, this has been a very candid conversation. I really appreciate you putting your ideas on the table like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get it done.
Thank you for your questions. Yeah.